All right, check. Check. Let's see if this thing is working. Yes, sir. Okay. Shalom, y'all. Happy Sabbath. Happy new moon as well. Tonight's topic is, ladies, is he a godly man? Ladies, is he a godly man? You're not going to be too long tonight. Um, I just saw this just now, probably 15, 20 minutes ago. Saw this clip of uh Michelle Obama, right? And it's always funny how this thing fits into the narrative of Israel. Uh, the things that the Most High shows you and puts kind of things in perspective is just, you can tell the Most High at times has a sense of humor, right? So I saw this video of Michelle Obama, and she's on a podium talking about how men. She's giving this speech about how, and this is what politicians always do, right? You don't see them for 4 years. They don't pop up for I don't know how long, right? Um, and you see this dynamic of her showing her face and Obama showing his face, and you know that the tactics they use is to shame you automatically, shame the men, because you have this, the divisive nature. Elections coming up with Trump and Kamala Harris, and then the last ditch effort is to try to emasculate you as a man. So she's on the podium. Obama already tried it, and then she's on the podium going giving this long speech about how men don't forget that, don't let your hate, what was it? Don't let your essentially don't let your hate get caught up to the point where you're not understanding or can't decipher what you need to be doing as a man as far as protecting the women in your life, right? So mothers, sisters, if those who have daughters, whatever it may be. And it's always these these little tactics that people try to get people on your side and try to make you feel some type of way to get you energetic about, okay, you know what? The way that you kind of explain that, I am kind of being X, Y, and Z. I am doing this. But not paying attention to the fact that all this stuff, none of these people care. They don't care about what um, your affiliation is. They don't care about trying to help you or none of these things. They're just saying these things to make you look weird and make you believe that, uh, like I seen the brothers of the doc had put up earlier, that the make you believe that the 1% at the top is going to somehow give the 99% at the bottom the ability to dictate terms to them, which we know Esau don't move like that. He got a plan, he gonna execute it. That's how they think. That's how they do it. So they're just trying to get people fighting against each other. And as usual, people are simple as hell, so it works. But she gives this long speech about how men ain't doing this, and they need to make sure that uh when the when the women make sure when you go vote, that even if your husband or somebody, the man in your life is doing X, Y, and Z, and y'all disagree, remember when you get into the booth, it's private in there, so nobody can see what you're doing. So essentially, disregard the husband or leading the household. Forget about that. Just make sure that you do what's good for you and best for you, and which is beautifully fits into the topic anyway. Ladies, is he a godly man? So we'll kind of hopefully I'll circle back to that example in a little while. But let's open up with Leviticus 18, or excuse me, Genesis 18. Uh, Genesis 18 in verse, I think 11. Yeah, Genesis 18 and 11. It says, "Now Abraham and Sarah were old and well stricken in age, and it ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women." Verse 12, "Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also." Right. So, quick, just an aside, real quick. Uh, for those that need it, whenever the time does come, people try to argue about Moses' law and all this other stuff. When you start looking at things like this, Genesis 18, when it talks about the manner of women. Genesis 31, when Rachel's doing the exact same thing, they understood blood being unclean and how to decipher. People talk about there's no laws before Moses, and then you ask them why in the world did Cain get judged in a matter for killing his brother? There's no law. It doesn't make any sense. Michelle Obama's Kenyan husband doesn't lead her. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I don't even know if that man want to lead her. He might be. That article they had in New York, he was talking about trying to be behind other men. So you know how them Hollywood and them politicians be. So it's crazy how that's the mindset of how these people move. This is further away from God as you can get. But this is the reason why the Most High has things in place to lead these things, because it's the only way to have a functioning, righteous society. So Genesis 18 and 12. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also. And the Lord said unto Abraham, Wherefore did Sarah laugh, saying, Shall I of a surety bear a child which am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the time appointed I will return unto thee according to the time of life, and Sarah shall have a son, which turned out to be Isaac. Then Sarah denied, saying, I laughed not, for she was afraid. And he said, Nay, but thou didst laugh. Right? And the men rose up from thence, and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to bring them on the way. Right? Verse 17, And the Lord said, Shall I hide from Abraham that thing which I do? Seeing that Abraham shall surely become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. Now, verse 17 should be something that women should pay attention to, right? If the Lord says, Shall I hide this thing from Abraham, which I do? We'll circle back to that too. Verse 19, For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken. Now, this speaks volumes if you are kind of understanding in relation to how women should think and process this level of information, the prophecy, and how things are kind of set. This should give you insight into a lot of different things and how the Most High has things set up, and what, as a woman, you're supposed to be able to look out for and pay attention to. Now, this will play into a point I'm trying to make when we come back to this. But just keep this in mind of why we started here, right? So let's go to Exodus 18. Exodus chapter 18. Verse 7. Yeah, verse 7. Exodus 18 and 7. And Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, and did obeisance, and kissed him, and they asked each other of their welfare, and they came into the tent. Now, this is after Moses marries a woman, and obviously, by definition, the father-in-law. Jethro is his father-in-law. They're communicating and having a discussion on recent past events, according to Egypt and the stuff that Israel went through, right? Verse 8. And Moses told his father-in-law all that the Lord had done unto Pharaoh and to the Egyptians for Israel's sake, and all the travail that had come upon them by the way, and how the Lord delivered them. And Jethro rejoiced for all the goodness which the Lord had done to Israel, whom he had delivered out of the hand of the Egyptians. And Jethro said, Blessed be the Lord, who have delivered you out of the hand of the Egyptians, and out of the hand of Pharaoh, who have delivered the people from under the hand of the Egyptians. Right? So, let's jump down to verse 13. It says, And it came to pass on the morrow that Moses sat to judge the people. And the people stood by Moses from the morning unto the evening. And Moses' father-in-law saw all that he did to the people. He said, What is this thing that thou doest to the people? Why sittest thou thyself alone, and all the people stand by thee from morning unto evening? Now you can imagine a man standing this way all day, all night, draining the mess out of you, right? So, happy Sabbath, y'all. Most High in Christ bless this. So a man standing in this position all day and all night, it's gonna drain him, obviously. It's hard to do it when you might be going to camp for a few hours. That's hard. Imagine a man sitting in front of a people, as hard headed as Israel is, to repeat this same thing over and over and over and over again. So Jethro asks, what is this thing that you think that you're doing? Verse 15. And Moses said unto his father in law, because the people come unto me to inquire of God, when they have a matter, they come unto me, and I judge between one and another. And I do make them know the statutes and of God and his laws. And Moses' father-in-law said unto him, the thing that thou doest is not good. Not because he's judging Israel. That's what we're supposed to do. As people talk about, I just seen this thing on Facebook the other day. Only God can judge me. Somebody said that's not in the Bible. That's just something Tupac said, right? So it's not that Moses is doing something bad. It's the way he's conducting it is not good. Now, this should draw a parallel to something else in the very beginning, right? Verse 18. Thou wilt surely wear away, but both thou and this people that is with thee, for this thing is too heavy for thee. Thou art not able to perform it thyself alone. So Jethro's just giving him good advice. You have a lot of responsibility. You have a purpose set in place. And the way that you're going about this is going to run you into the ground quickly. So you have to figure out or come up with a different alternative of how you want to conduct this business for the Lord, right? Because one man ain't supposed to take on all this. One man ain't supposed to be alone, right? Verse 19. Hearken now unto my voice. I'm going to give thee counsel, and God shall be with thee. Be thou for the people to Godward, that thou mayest bring the causes unto God. And thou shalt teach them ordinances and laws, and shalt show them the way wherein they must walk, and the work that they must do. Moreover, thou shalt provide out of all the people able men, such as fear God, men in truth, hating covetousness, and place such over them to be rulers of thousands, rulers of hundreds, rulers of fifties, and rulers of tens. And let them judge the people at all seasons. And it shall be that every great matter they shall bring unto thee, but every small matter they shall judge. So shall it be easier for thyself, and they shall bear the burden with thee. Now, why do we come here? So think about this setup, right? It's the way that Jethro kind of gives Moses advice is helping him to understand, even though you're doing a good work, it's something you need to understand. You have to start to learn how to what's that word? Delegate responsibility, right? So you have to understand how to pick who you need to pick. You need to understand how to inform them of what you need done, and understand and help them to understand how these things are supposed to be conducted. And it's on you to find that person, right? Now, this is the exact same dynamic or setup as a marriage, or I'm not going to say dating because that's not in the scriptures. But the way that this process works for men and women is supposed to be, this system is supposed to be the exact same way, right? Moses has a purpose. He starts to outsource responsibility after he gets kind of set in what he's supposed to be doing, working for the Lord. He has to delegate power to figure out who can handle this role, right? A man's supposed to do the exact same thing when he finds his wife, right? That's supposed to be the order of things. Now, whoever fills that role, they still have to answer to Moses, right? There is a power structure and it goes from top to bottom. This is the way it's working. Moses is setting these things up for certain men to be in these certain positions to rule over things. But when the things get great or if certain matters have to be really addressed of great importance, they come to you. And it's not to say that in a marriage, if certain things are what you might consider minuscule or little, that doesn't necessarily run to the top either. But it's just to look at and understand the dynamic of how these relationships are supposed to work. The Lord set this thing in order the exact same way. The relationships are supposed to work this exact same way. That's what God says. Not me, not somebody else. That's what the Lord says. The man finds who he can to fulfill the role. That person that takes on that role has to understand their position and what they're supposed to do to fulfill that, right? But Moses, as the leader, has to make sure he's explaining it in a certain way to understand this is what I expect of you. This is the way we're moving. This is what the Lord requires of us. And we're going to move according to this plan because that's why the Most High has me in this position, right? So, foreign mother kept herself beautiful in order to spite her age, and good old Abe kept cutting. So, right on. So, you have the way this thing's supposed to be set up is this exact same order. Now, why is this important? Obviously, it's important because of God says so, right? But understanding, like I seen some guy, some atheist in some video said that you have to understand that we are more moral. We're more moral overall than the Bible, which is the statement doesn't make any sense anyway. Everything we think of outside of an objective power is subjective anyway. The statement doesn't make any sense. But everything that you think about that people claim to be moral come from these scriptures. They try to, even marriage itself, the Lord instituted. So people will try to just pull these things and just try to do away with the word or say that God didn't do this, but they'll pull things from him as the great and understanding power. How are you going to outsmart or figure out a society runs better than the creator himself? You can't do it. But people attempt this all the time to get away from or undercut the responsibility that comes with or the judgment that comes with not abiding by the laws that the creator set in place, right? This goes for men, this goes for women. Now, let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3. First Peter chapter 3 and First Peter chapter 3 and verse 5. Yeah, verse 5. For after this manner in the old time the holy women also who trusted in God adorned themselves, being in subjection under their own husbands. Now nowadays, uh, it's like people look at these terms as they're offensive, right? Now, even what my understanding as the scriptures talk about a smooth answer, turn away wrath, the way you're supposed to conduct yourself and have it seasoned with speech, a seasoned with salt. It's not that you don't understand that the way you come across to people holds weight. That really matters. You can't just expect somebody to change or turn over a new leaf when you're just downgrading them or yelling at them. It's not the way you're supposed to conduct yourself. Christ didn't move like that. But there is a point that you reach where even though you're saying something in a respectful manner, certain people still don't like what you're saying, even in a respectful tone. They just don't like the message. So then they start to attack the message and make you try to adjust your speech to essentially to change everything to get off that point and to justify whatever behavior that person is conducting themselves in. So there is a point where you reach where you're just like, I've done everything I can on my own to make sure I'm coming off as calm and understanding as possible. But I now know that you're trying to play with me and change words around because you just don't like the meaning behind it. That's the point where you reach of no return. I'm not doing that. So things like terms like subjection, wife is under the subjection of her husband. I don't care about people talking about they're offended at that. I could care less. That's what the Lord says. I'm not going to try to use terms that people hate. I don't like. Use something outside of submission. Use something outside of obey. Use something outside of Lord. No, that's not what the scriptures say. So that's not offensive. It's only attacking the type of spirit or the behavior that the person is conducting themselves in, and they don't care about the message or how you're disseminating it. They want you to just completely turn off what it means to be in order. That's what they believe. That's how they want it to come across. But they don't want to necessarily tell you that verbatim because it wouldn't necessarily hold any water. They're trying to be deceptive and say things like use different terms. But when the scriptures say things like being in subjection unto your own husbands, there's a reason for all these things, right? It's not to be offensive. It's to where the Most High set things in order. Now, it's always fascinating how a person can be upset at the terms or the wording, but then they want to kind of uncouple the ability to be equal or powerful, but kind of uncouple responsibility from that ability to be in charge, right? you're supposed to do this as a man, but okay, if you're holding me to that standard, you're supposed to do this. Oh, no, no, no. That's what a man's supposed to do, but I can do this. You have to take the responsibility on as the leader, as a man, what the Most High put you in charge of. That's on your plate as well. You can't pick and choose or have a buffet of what you want. That's how the Most High set it up. Now there is a advantage for women. They have advantages and disadvantages, but this is to understand and make sure that you know your strengths and your weaknesses. They are very important to understand who you are in the system of how the Most High set things up. So being in subjection unto your own husbands, even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughters ye are, as long as ye do well, and are not afraid with any amazement. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. Now, again, this is just a baseline that people need to understand, right? Women are the weaker vessel, bar none. They are the ones that's supposed to be in subjection to their husbands. Now, there's a reason why I'm saying this. This isn't to be, again, offensive or come off a certain way. There's a reason why I'm saying this. Because when you start to deviate from what the Lord says, we see the repercussions now. We see it all over the earth. So a person can't say, if we had the chance to run things, this is how it would go. X would wind up like this and this. We've seen all these trials runs from every nation under the sun. If they're not led by the only God, they're not the ones that's given the universal law, then they're finished. It's just is exactly how society is going to be. You might look at something like the Middle East and be like, oh, well, men are in charge over there. Yeah, but certain ones deal with their wives a certain way too. That's inhumane, or not supposed to move like that with them as well. So only that order and that law of understanding can come from the only power, right? Which ain't Allah, ain't Buddha, and all the rest of these fake gods. It comes from the God of the Israelites, right? So this is the way that the Lord set it up. Women, understand that you are the weaker vessel. Now, you women, the reason why I say this is because women need to understand your position as a woman is in the you are the vulnerable one, right? If you were to take this is why it's interesting to like look at the spiritual and the physical. You can do both, right? If you want to look at just the spiritual side, you can just read the scriptures, right? If you want to take away the spiritual side and just look at the physical, the things in the physical they tend to exacerbate or show you on a clearer level what mirrors the spiritual, right? For instance, like if we were to just look at this carnally, if we were to just look at this spiritually, I mean physically, without the spirit, without you giving your godly words and all this other advice, look at this completely physically. The scriptures say that the woman is a weaker vessel, right? She needs to understand that because there's weaknesses and there's strengths that come with it. If women need to you need to understand how to stay in your place. And men have usually when you say these things, it kind of comes off as a block because as soon as you hear it, the antennas go up being offensive. Men have a place too in a position. That's why the Lord calls them to duty as well. But women need to stay in their place for this reason. The world that we live in, if you kind of call it like a concrete jungle, right? It's a crazy place that we live in. People that are rapists, murderers, physical abusers, thieves, all kinds of chaos and all kinds of crazy spirits is out here, right? And women need to when you have like a lot of rhetoric and ideologies coming from America, especially in this place, America, it tends to put people in this disillusioned state, and they start to kind of believe the things that they hear, even though the reality is telling them something contrary. Like women need to understand as the weaker vessel. Let's remove the spiritual side from it. Just completely carnal, physical. I don't know if I mentioned this some time ago in another class, but I mentioned this from my sister, and this goes to other people, other women as well. Understand that if men themselves wanted to completely turn around and put women in cages or do anything. There's nothing women can do, right? They can't fight them. They can't do anything. Understand that position and operate from that position as the weaker vessel. Understand that from the emotional being, all that stuff, because this is smart for you. I told my sister a long time ago because she has this every now and then she's got these these road rage fits and she gets upset. She'll lay on the horn and all this other stuff. And I asked her before, listen, if you are in a traffic stop or something, you feel like a guy is moving slow or he's not moving fast enough, whatever it may be, and you decide to lay on your horn and say something and be obnoxious, and that dude decides to throw his car in park, open the door, and approach you one on one, what are you going to do? Immediately, that fantasy of I can say and do what I think and what I want, immediately reality sets in. Then what? Then you can be reminded physically that you are the weaker vessel, right? This is the reason why it's smart to understand your position and stay in it. You have to have a level of respect or understanding for the type of strength that men come with. So there's nothing you can really do if that's what happens. He decides to gauge you, it's a wrap. Hopefully he don't get your door open, he breaks the window. Now women can say things like in modern times, women have, which people, what is that term, the equalizer, they have a gun or a weapon, right? And I've looked up statistics on this stuff too, which is, it just makes sense that women are more likely to get their weapons taken from them in an altercation. So it's like everything on the physical points to it to show women their position. Understand that and respect it, because you can get caught out here thinking that you're something that you're not, and then you get immediately reminded of what you are, right? It's the same thing if a woman gets kidnapped. The only thing she can do is befriend the captor. That's the only way she can get away. Trick him with the way she talks or something. She can't really do anything. She be in full subjection physically to that man. Now, a lot of our sisters have a lot of problems. All women, a lot of them. But speaking specifically about Israelites, our sisters have a problem with their mouth, right? They run their mouth. They get in confrontations with the man that they dealing with, saying hit me, do all this other stuff. And a lot of them say that because I'm sure that they believe that the cops will side with them. But it takes a while for the cops to get to where you're at. So if the man decides to, okay, it's going to be the last day I'm free, but I bet you won't make it out of here, there's really nothing you can do about it. So it's kind of unwise to provoke somebody that you really can't handle that situation. Men don't really deal like that. If I'm in a room with Mike Tyson, I'm not gonna be no punk either. But I'm not a person. I understand the threat. I'm not gonna start arguments and do all this other stuff, especially if I'm not gonna get out of there alive. That's like suicide. It doesn't make any sense. So women have to understand this concept to understand your strengths and your weaknesses, right? Now, I say all that to say this: the differences and the distinctions between that massive gap from the physical, like I mentioned earlier, only further illustrates that we're not on the same level physically, and the scriptures spiritually tell we're not on the same level either. The Most High puts men in charge, the women are underneath this, right? Now, I'm saying all this for a point. Let's go to Numbers chapter 30. And I know, again, that's why I said the audience, when you talking about certain things and you understand who might hear it, who might see it, how you're saying it, or how you're coming across. All this stuff is a point. If a person's offended at reality and the truth, ain't nothing I can do for it. Now, I can try to make sure, again, I try to say things in a certain way to not try to be offensive, because that's not the point. It's just to understand that certain things can get to a point of life and death, right? So they want to be drafted. They said no, so the man will stay home and raise the children. Yeah, that's. I'll just mention one of them because I have two thoughts on what you just said, Sadak. As far as they don't want to go to war, it's like when things get real. Like I noticed this, and I'm not. I'll say it, but I'm not. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to be vulgar, right? It's like all these things, like Romans 1, and the Lord tells you, my creation shows as evidence that I am a creator and I'm here, right? Short of me jumping off the throne and standing in front of you, which is coming, but you have to have a level of faith to serve the Lord. But the evidence is overwhelming that the Lord is a creator, and look at how things are supposed to work. This is the reason why I mentioned before about it's never not funny when I seen this guy had said asking about homosexuals. And he was like, how is it that you can be a homosexual and you're saying that this is natural because you're one to try to pull from the animal kingdom? But how is it that your sperm is always straight? Like your sperm is programmed to find the egg. It's not possible that you have all these different misconceptions inside your own body and your body knows what to do, but your feelings are talking about something else. It's just a level of perversion. So you need somebody to tell you right from wrong, right? It's the same thing with women physically. Women, their bodies are designed to be takers, right? A man, as the scriptures talk about, knows his wife. I'm trying to be as biblical as I can. He knew his wife. He went into his wife. Her physical body is the submissive body, right? Everything illustrates the Most High's point. The man is the dominant one. He's over her. He's a stronger one. He's the leader. He's more competent to be in that position. That's the way the Most High set it up. Is it to denigrate women? Of course not. It's just you have a role and it's important to know your role. So the Most High sets that up. Now it's funny because when that stuff happens physically, women assume their role. Like there's not really a discussion, and women actually talk about how they want a man like that. That's their role. They want a man that's be a leader and doing all these other things. It's the same thing like your brother you mentioned about war. When things get real in wartime, everybody starts to go back to their roles. They start to understand. They're not even talking about these different things. They understand, oh, no, I'm not trying to do that. I'll do this. And it's not something you got to kind of coerce somebody into. They just fall into it normally, right? It's just the way America pushes this message, and the rest of the world in certain places talks about egalitarianism and we're supposed to be equal. It doesn't make any sense because we have strengths and we have weaknesses. Men have weaknesses as well. We have strengths and weaknesses, and we're put together to make this union work. That's why you put a man and a woman and they come together. That's the only thing that comes with a new life. It's the only way it can happen. So the reason why I say this is because of this. Numbers chapter 30. Numbers chapter 30 and verse 1. And Moses spake unto the heads of the tribes concerning the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing which the Lord hath commanded. If a man vow a vow unto the Lord, or swear an oath to bind his soul with a bond, he shall not break his word. He shall do according to all that proceedeth out of his mouth. Now we know, just to update, when we look at the Gospels, we know Christ came and said, don't even make vows. But I'm just trying to illustrate a point. Verse 3. If a woman also vow a vow unto the Lord, and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow, and her bond wherewith she have bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vows shall stand, and every bond wherewith she have bound her soul will stand. But if her father disallow her, in the day that he heareth, not any of her vows or her bonds wherewith she hath bound her soul shall stand, and the Lord shall forgive her because her father disallowed her. Now look at the power dynamic of a person making a vow. It's a vow in the Old Testament. Sister comes forth and does it, a father can overrule her. Her prayer can be cut out, or her vow can be cut out simply because he's in that role that the Lord gave. Now, verse 6. If she had at all a husband when she vowed or uttered out aught out of her lips, wherewith she bound her soul. So if a woman is married and she does this, not just a father and a daughter, if a woman is married and she does this. Verse 7, and her husband heard it, and held his peace at her in the day that he heard it, then her vow shall stand, and her bonds wherewith she bound her soul shall stand. But if her husband disallowed her on the day that he heard it, then he shall make her vow what she vowed, and that which she uttered with her lips, wherewith she bound her soul, of none effect, the Lord shall forgive her. Verse 13. Every vow, and every binding oath to afflict the soul, her husband may establish it, or her husband may make it void. Now, this is why this is important. The dynamic, the way the Most High set it up, the man holds inordinate amount of power over his wife. Is that toxic? Is that wrong? No. It's for a reason. But a woman needs to understand that, understand she's the weaker vessel, understand that this man is going to be the head and the leader. Why is that? Because women have to be careful who you let choose you, right? You have to be careful because men are supposed to find his wife, right? You have to be careful who you let choose you. A lot of these times nowadays is you have it in the truth now too, but you can see it in the world. Women don't know how to properly vet no dude. Women don't, they fall for whatever is saying in his ear. Women don't pay attention to nothing. They dismiss the red flags. If the dude's tall, if he's attractive. Men do the same thing. They get caught up with these women that they're beautiful as well. But this is very carnal and it doesn't prove for long-term success. This is the reason why the Most High says there's certain things you should engage in only when you're married. It just makes sense. It's ridiculous to do otherwise, right? But a woman is, you're the vulnerable one. You need to understand you're the vulnerable one. Don't think things like, well, if he can't lead me, I can take over from time to time. If he does this and he's not fulfilling this, then I can do. You thinking that equality is going to lead you to a destructive relationship. That's not wise. That's not how the things are supposed to be built. You need to understand who you are in a relationship so you can move accordingly and not be believing some fairy tale that you can do something else or balance each other out. And they have all these terms nowadays. I see so many women talking about, oh, that's not my husband. I got a partner. It's like, that terms to me, it could be necessarily nobody's perfect or it's on purpose, but terms like that to me, just, I just immediately flags go up to be like, that's the thought process of, well, we make decisions together, which is healthy, but we know that the ultimate say so should go to the leader, the one that the woman's supposed to want, or she's supposed to allow her to pick or find follow a leader that's supposed to lead her. That was the choice. So that's supposed to be in his lap. But you have this chaotic mindset where, well, who's the deciding factor if we get into an argument? Well, whoever feels like it at the time. That doesn't make any sense. If he's supposed to be the leader and the head of the household, you need to understand who you're getting involved with. Many women do not know how to vet men. That's for the world, and this is for the truth as well. Go to 2 Timothy chapter 2. We all know the scripture, and a lot of times just kind of falls flat on its face because it just is not, it's not done. 2 Timothy 2 and 15. Sisters, study to show yourself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. Now, workmen, I'll say workwoman, not to usurp or destroy the text, but we know this is written in masculine form. Sisters are supposed to understand scriptures as well. Understanding that the man is supposed to lead, but that doesn't mean you're not. I never look into the scriptures. I never read. I never precept anything. I don't even have a Bible. It's whatever my husband tells me. That's where you can get into trouble if you pick the wrong guy. That's what people do in church. They don't. They open the book, turn the Psalms, they open the Psalms, and then they head her up. And they just listen to him go on his spiel. And then you ask them, what'd they learn? Oh, the blood? What's that mean? Well, the pastor was really on one today. That don't make any sense. It's not illustrating anything for you. You didn't grow from this. You didn't learn anything while you sat in here for 3 hours. It doesn't make any sense. It happens on a small scale during COVID. One will say you hate women. I don't know what woman hurt you. Hey, he gay. All the kind of. Listen, this is the exact same thing. I hear this often, and that's the reason why I started off mentioning this Michelle Obama. You can say things like, now, whoever sees this video that doesn't know me and you come across this video, Israelites ain't supposed to be out here voting for nobody. Trump ain't going to save your life. Kamala ain't going to save your life. Their purpose is not to help you anyway. The Lord going to figure all this other stuff and destroy the system one way or the other. I'm not for no voting, right? I ask people all the time, if Christ was here, is he a Democrat or Republican? Most people, interestingly enough, are wise enough to say, well, he wouldn't have voted for us. So why are you doing it? That doesn't make any sense. I don't care about the Republican system or the Democratic system. I just find it fascinating how people jump through hoops to defend these people that are linked to sex traffickers, that are linked to murderers, linked to people disappearing. It's amazing to me how people will say all these different things and they somehow every 4 years they believe that the candidate that comes through is the one that has just wade through the dirt and just got a clean record, and they're just going to be up here to be the spokesperson for America and fix everything. It's absolutely ridiculous. But people believe this. So you say things, which I actually said this a couple weeks ago at camp, at night, people just walking by, and you always notice, like Hebrews 4, people's spirits start getting cut. You ain't talking to them directly, but they start getting hit. And I seen the guy walks by, catch his eye, and I was mentioned talking about Kamala Harris, and I said it's amazing. Like somebody had mentioned that before, uh, Indian white woman, even black, but even if she was a so-called black woman, who cares? She's still a part of the demonic system. But then I had said she's a clown. She got a terrible track record, just like every single politician before her. The guy was like, his reaction was, "What do you mean? So you vote for Trump?" I'm like, why is that always the only counter people have? Why isn't that they're both trash? Don't even vote in this system that has never shown anything to be for you. But the immediate response you typically get from women is you can't stand black women. And that's why it's so offensive because she's a black woman. And I'm like, who if even if she was, which she isn't, who cares? As if America's ever done something or they're up at night trying to figure out a system on how to help the American people. They don't care. They never have. It's not a hard system to figure out. That's why it's so comical when you have these conversations with people. It's so ridiculous. But that's the mindset. So they keep saying these different things over and over again. Sisters need to understand you need to show yourself approved. Study these things because in your position as the emotional state that a lot of women are, I don't care what they claim, and they're not this, and nobody's not saying that men aren't emotional as well, but they ain't on average not even close to being as emotional as sisters are. For instance, Genesis 16. This is the reason why I said we was going to try and circle back. I'm glad I didn't forget. Genesis 16. Um, Genesis 16 and 1. This ain't even the only instance. You'll see this in a couple other places too. And this is the reason why it's so crazy as the Bible will talk about. It just illustrates things on a day-to-day basis. Just you can't, it's really impossible to deny. Genesis 16 verse 1. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children, and she had an handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord have restrained me from bearing. I don't know who told her that. I pray thee, go in unto my maid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, and gave her to her husband Abram to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. Now, this is the reason why this is important as well. Go into the emotional state, right? We know it started off with the serpent in the garden approaching Eve. There's a reason for it. Not these things aren't happenstance, right? These things illustrate over and over and over again how this system is dynamic in the physical realm works. It tells everything you need to know. It dictates the premise. It shows you from the jump the idea of a man following his wife will be the fall of mankind. That's from the jump. That's how things fell. So what makes you think it's any different nowadays? And the men today aren't even in the position. They're not. I'm not saying this isn't no big up to the men nowadays. These dudes is acting like clowns too, chasing every girl and doing all this other stuff. And I've seen that post. The woman on OnlyFans is making as much as an NBA player, and I'm like, this stuff is insane. And this is I put majority of the weight on men's shoulders all the time. It's not that I'm because I have a lot of criticisms about women and the way they move, but ultimately me understanding that they are the weaker vessel. I'm not expecting women to lead anything. So the men get themselves in order and they'll move accordingly. That's the way it needs to go anyway. That doesn't necessarily absolve them from the stuff that they're doing because they're grown ups as well. This is the reason why we have in this class and have an understanding on it, right? So this is a reality that people need to be aware of. Now, as Abraham, as a godly man in this position, right? Did Abraham make a wise decision in hearkening to his wife and Hagar and dealing with her? No. But this is important to understand because even men of God are fallible, right? They make mistakes. This is why it's even more important that a woman's supposed to pay attention to who she's getting involved with. The man might come after you, but you give him access to all these different things. You don't have to follow him. You have to make sure that you know the man that you are getting involved with, right? Now, even though this is Sarai's idea, it doesn't stop her from blaming her husband, right? Verse 5. Verse 4 again. And he went unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised. And all right, so Hagar started being like, okay, she couldn't get pregnant. I did quickly. Starts to look at her a certain type of way and deal with her a certain type of way. Now, as a result of this, verse 5, and Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. It's your fault. I have given my maid unto thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judged between me and thee. So, even in this position, as you understand, and don't tell me this isn't a worldly answer, this is how a lot of women move. It was their idea. They did it. I'm still going to blame you. They're going to figure out a way to navigate around being accountable. That's how a lot of women operate. Is that all women? Of course not. We're seeing the exact same opposite of sisters in the truth that are moving the way that they're supposed to be moving, understanding when you do something, admit that you're wrong. It's really not that big of a deal. But people make it out like that. A lot of women make it out like that because it's like admitting that you're wrong is like dying to some women. It's unbelievable. But again, you need to understand who you're involved with because even a man of God can slip up or make a mistake. Hopefully, it's not a pattern of behavior. Hopefully, you vetted and understood that man. Now, let's go to Sirach 36. This is something that women understand. I mean, universally they understand. It doesn't stop them from falling into madness, but nonetheless, it's a universal truth that women are aware of. Men know this too. Men don't necessarily have a problem admitting it, but Genesis 36, excuse me, Sirach 36 and 18. It says, the belly devoureth all meats, yet is one meat better than another, right? Meaning a person that they eat a variety of foods. They understand that there's differences between the foods that they eat, right? Obviously, you eating broccoli all day, every day. You're tired of it. You switch up because you just taste buds are fried. You want to do something else to shock, and it tastes different, right? Verse 19. As the palate tastes diverse kinds of venison, right? Different types of meat. The same way you eat, basic principle. So doth in heart of understanding false speeches. No, I'm gonna read verse 20. I'm gonna read verse 22. 20, yeah, 22. The beauty of a woman cheereth the countenance, and a man loveth nothing better. I'm gonna read that again. Sirach 36 and 22. The beauty of a woman, it cheereth the countenance, and a man love nothing better. I heard a guy say a long time ago, the only two things, how do you phrase it? The only two things that drive a man, that'll make a man act foolish is the beauty of a woman and a certain amount of money. Now, that's a true statement, but there might be a couple other things you can throw in there. But that's probably the two leading causes of men being degenerate, right? Lust wrapped up in the wrapped up together, women and money, right? The reason why I'm mentioning putting this together with it because women need to understand false speech. Some of them do, but they lean into it anyways because it's you gave them a type of permission. It's like the like what's the term? Plausible deniability. It's like I I want to get money and be a hoe, but don't call me that. Like don't label me with that title. I'm not a prostitute. Give me the definition of a prostitute. Somebody exchanges sexual favors or some type of sex for money. What do you do? Live sex on camera. You get paid for it? Yeah, you're a prostitute. No, I'm not. I don't consider myself a prostitute. That's what you are. So some women know that the guy that they're dealing with, this dude probably ain't really, he ain't about nothing. You're supposed to understand how to decipher false speeches. Men talk a lot of different things because women are beautiful, because they want something from you physically. Men will say all kinds of things to get laid. Women need to understand this stuff. You see this running rampant in the world. He said this, he just had this charm about him, there's something about him, is blah, blah, blah. And then you reason why you understand in the past you have fathers giving their daughters away because the father ain't falling for this crap. But women are so emotionally attached or so invested in some guy that they shouldn't be invested in. He's coming to choose you. You feel special, and now you're caught up. The dude, oh, he not being a father, he never around. Well, that's who he was. That's who he's always been. Understand that these men move this certain type of way to get things out of you. You are in a vulnerable position. You need to understand who you're getting involved with, right? There is no shortage of men out here. Even in the truth, I've heard these crazy stories. There's no shortage of men in the truth that have hit their wives, that have tried to get them involved in threesomes, having a wife and getting some other woman involved, having lied to them about we can just start cooking on the Sabbath now. You better know what type of dude you're dealing with because you understand your position. He's a leader, right? You're supposed to be following. I'm not saying to follow him into madness. If you see him doing wrong, don't do sin. I'm not saying that. But you got to make sure because if he's slicker than you in the scriptures, and more than likely, most men overwhelmingly know more than scriptures and breakdowns and understand. This is kind of our life. It's not that saying it's not the sisters, but these brothers be on the street. They do this is their bread and butter. Like they breathe this stuff. So it's not likely that you would find too many sisters that can out precept brothers. It's really not really going to happen. But understanding to identify what type of man he is, because you should be able to spot these things, right? Let's jump back to Sirach 23. Sirach 23, verse 15. The man that is accustomed to opprobrious words will never be reformed all the days of his life, right? Makes perfect sense. A person that talks like that, the scriptures talk about how the heart of a man is speaks to understand who he is, right? If this is all he knows, nigga, f this, f this is his entire vocabulary. Okay, I'm not saying that the brother don't might not be intelligent, but the way he kind of conveys himself is not really. Most people are giving the benefit of the doubt. They're kind of going off of the impressions, right, and what they hear. Verse 16: two sorts of men multiply sin, and the third will bring wrath. A hot mind is as a burning fire. It will never be quenched till it be consumed. You can precept that. It's really side note. Precept that with Hosea 7. A fornicator in the body of his flesh will never cease till he have kindled a fire. Right? All bread, verse 17, all bread is sweet to a whoremonger. He will not leave off till he die. Right? Understand that there's plenty of dudes out there that'll do anything to sleep with it. They a lot of men look at it from the perspective of I'm a champion. I'm It's a level of like accomplishment. Like a dude got a 4-year degree to knock down someone. And there's brothers in the truth. You should know that I've known these brothers. There's brothers in the truth like this. This ain't just in the world. This is obviously a class. Even if a secular woman were to see this class, the same thing still applies because the Most High's logic is it can work through the seams of the physical and the spiritual both together. So this is good advice for either, though you should repent if you're in the world, right? But understand this concept about men. This isn't the same as it used to be in the past, right? you had certain like responsive um you had certain responsibilities. Go to Deuteronomy 22. Deuteronomy 22, verse 28. Deuteronomy 22 and verse 28. If a man find a damsel that is a virgin, which is not betrothed, and lay hold on her, and lie with her, and they be found, then the man that lay with her shall give unto the damsel's father 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he hath humbled her. He may not put her away all his days, right? This is not talking about rape. Brothers will try to, never mind, that's a whole nother side thing. But this isn't the modern times now ain't like it was back then, right? You don't have brothers just being like, yeah, I told you this, and I said these things to sleep with you, but I regret it. Like I'm not really for this right now. I got other things to do. We both made a mistake. And this is where stuff like a slippery road starts to happen, where you go from just this and people's hearts getting broken and being involved in something too heavy you weren't supposed to do until you wait until marriage and make sure both people are vetted. Or then you have the ultimate situation where you have now's the child involved. And now, since America allows you to do X, Y, and Z, the only result is I know that's my son. I'll just kill him. I don't really have time for it. I don't have the money. X, Y, and Z. All these excuses come up and it's crazy to me how people will be after this. Why a lot of people are voting for Kamala to talk about reproductive rights. But it's crazy how even the people that will say things like, "Yeah, I regret the abortion, but I'm still gonna keep having sex unprotected," which is insane. Which is insane. People never take this. They never learn from the mistake and be like, I'm gonna stop sleeping around now to prevent any of this stuff happening. I'll just stop. So I'll remove myself from the equation so it can't happen, right? So this is not this level of responsibility back then. This ain't on men now. Ain't nobody trying to hold them accountable for this stuff. This guy can get you pregnant and then dip, and then you have excuses of single mother households and all this other stuff. And it's like this is the reason why the Most High put these things in place as parameters, because people are going to do people things. You have to hold them accountable and have them to answer for the things that they do. You have to, or else they're going to run around and make excuses for whatever vile behavior they find themselves involved in, and whatever repercussions that comes about of it. They're going to move the exact same way because nobody's forcefully putting them involved. It's the reason why the Most High has law and judgment. Even though I found myself and I love the Most High, even by definition, love is keeping the commandments, which is crazy because it's an action. You can't just say these things willy nilly and be like it's a feeling. The Most High holds you accountable. You don't love me unless you're abiding by the law. So that's the perfect situation for human beings because we know if you don't hold them to it, look at the world in the way it is, right? So men are not under this level of scrutiny nowadays. Women have to move accordingly. You, again, another example of women being the most vulnerable ones. The dude sleeps with you, he's done after 2 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever. You carrying the child. It's the exact same position of you being vulnerable. Understand that and move accordingly, right? Sirach chapter 11. Back to Sirach. Just about done. Back to Sirach chapter 11. Verse 1. It says, "Wisdom lifteth up the head of him that is of low degree, and maketh him to sit among great men," right? Not his height, his income, the way he looks. I'm not a person that doesn't say there's nothing. The Lord didn't even say anything there's a problem with attraction. That's just a normal thing. But to weigh your future on how tall a guy is or how he looks or how slick he talked to you, this is how you get caught up. And then divorce is another side note. Divorces skyrocket or a result of these things. Divorces skyrocket because they never vetted anybody. They go into their second and third, and that goes to 70-80% of divorce. All this other crazy stuff that happens if could have been avoided when the Most High had these things in place for people to follow. Wisdom is the thing that makes a man know who he is, how he's supposed to operate, like Moses was endowed with, to find a person or a helper to further along the plan, right? The Lord picked Moses like that. Moses was adequate as a leader enough to be able to delegate this role and information and understanding to somebody else and still have this thing in place so the system works and functions properly. Verse 2, commend not a man for his beauty, neither abhor a man for his outward appearance. The bee is little among such as fly, but her fruit is the chief of sweet things. Boast not of thy clothing and raiment, and exalt not thyself in the day of honor. For the works of the Lord are wonderful, and his works among men are hidden. And that's one of the things that people miss a lot. They think, oh, no, this is the same reason why people don't believe we Israel. Because the Most High is working a magnificent thing that he's doing. Nobody care. We just Negroes. That's nobody look. Y'all in the ghettos, y'all doing this other stuff. There's no way. There's no way God is with y'all. The same way a woman should understand how to vet a man. Is this man? That's why I mentioned earlier about in Genesis. We start off in Genesis 18. And the Lord says, shall I hide this from Abraham? Nah. Showed it to him because he says, I know this man is going to conduct his household this way. He's going to teach his children. He's going to do X, Y, and Z. I know he's a man of God. Should I hide it from him? No. Certain men, the things that are happening right now, they can't see it in front of their face. Is that a man that you should be able to go into holy matrimony with and be happy to be his wife? No, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you do that? The world's crumbling. Somebody needs an answer. He's supposed to be able to lead you through this. Spiritually, can he do it? No. So don't be with him. These are the things you're supposed to be paying attention to, not because he got the clothes on, all this other stuff. It doesn't make any sense. Galatians chapter 5. Galatians 5 in verse 22. But the fruits of the Spirit is love, keeping commandments, joy, peace. These are the things you're supposed to be able to look at a man for. Because remember, he's supposed to be choosing you, but you have to be careful of who you decide to let yourself be under the leadership of or under the shield of, because he's supposed to be a protector, all these other things. You got to make sure that this guy has got your best interests at heart. So he's supposed to have these qualities. Love is a keeping of commandments. He's supposed to have joy, peace, long suffering. That's a lot for a relationship. Long suffering. He's supposed to be a gentle person or a gentleman. Goodness, faith, meekness, temperance is a massive one. Temperance. Against such there is no law. Not saying that you're being unlawful, but understanding that you're abiding by the law. You don't necessarily need to be hounded by do this because the law says it. You're a person that has embodied these type of things and these characteristics in your spirit. So this is the type of thing you're supposed to see out of the man that you're dealing with. Don't hop, skip into. I've seen this situation happen where people get married too fast. In the world, I've seen it in the truth. Most of the time, it doesn't turn out well because this is a long-term thing, right? Look at the relationship, long-suffering or temperance. Look at the relationship that we have with the Lord. How long has this been? This whore of a church, Israel, has walked around dealing with everybody under the sun. The level of commitment the Most High has, or his Son has, that he put in place for us is kind of really, it's not represented in the earth really, right? Like the Lord should have been cut Israel off. I mean, by anybody's standard, if you know the scriptures, in the way that the Most High, the way that a woman as Israel has dealt with the one that's supposed to be presented, should have cut her off a long time ago. But there is a prize within the prize, if you will, of Israel that's getting themselves clean and going to be presented as virgins to the Son, right? So that niche group of Israelites that's supposed to be presented is going to be worth it, such as say as the Most High says so, right? That cluster of the grape he talks about in 2nd Ezra 9 is going to be worth it, because that's the person that has the Lord has truly vetted to be his wife. And he's going to understand, I'm going to put you through this is the things you got to do, this is the responsibilities you have, and I'm going to see who falters under that level of pressure. And you're seeing it now. The wife pieces of the wife, if you will, because Israel as a nation is one wife, right? But you can kind of look at it as like a multitude of wives, and they're all falling apart until we get to the point of judgment when the Lord has finally found the right woman with the right temperance, the right disposition to be able to allow them now become into the marriage. That's the way they're supposed to be the same thing on the physical manifestation on this earth, that men's supposed to deal with their wives. He's supposed to choose wisely as well. And the woman making sure, as you know, in the more vulnerable position, is this a man I can really submit and give my life to? You got to understand how to vet that type of person. He's supposed to have these characteristics within him. Back to Sirach chapter 27. I promise we're almost done. Sirach 27. Sirach chapter 27, verse 3. Unless a man hold himself diligently in the fear of the Lord, his house shall soon be overthrown, because he carries the weight. He's the leader. He's the anchor, right? If he don't hold himself diligently in the Lord, you not, women, sisters, you're not supposed to be with him. If he's not a person that's abiding by this, if he's a person that's still trying to go out to the club and keep the morning Sabbath when the sun comes up, so I can go to the club Friday night. If he's doing all this other weird stuff, entertaining weird women, something's up. Obviously, these are signs that this is not a man of God. The things that you might see some of these men do, men of God are embarrassed to be associated with that type of stuff, right? You're supposed to understand this man is supposed to lead you and your household. If he don't hold himself diligently in that fear of God, the relationship in the household is finished. Verse 4. As when one sifteth with a sieve, the refuse remaineth, so is the filth of man in his talk, right? Understanding speeches. Verse 5. The furnace proveth the potter's vessel, so the trial of man and woman is in his reasoning, right? That's one of my favorite scriptures. The trial of man is in their reasoning. When you reason things and you see things and you have that discernment that the Lord is giving, people have this level of intellect that you have different, separating you from the animal kingdom. Oh, the animals are gay, so we're supposed to be gay. You have a discernment that comes with being in this privileged state. Understand, have reasoning. Look at these things, reason through them. Search the scriptures, figure these things out. That's your trial. Because after you reason something enough, you can now make an educated decision on something you're supposed to move forward in, whatever that may be. Verse 6 is my point. The fruit declareth if the tree have been dressed, right? Now we mentioned right before this in Galatians 5 about the fruits of the Spirit, right? The same way Christ talks about in Matthew 7 about these are the works, people that don't know. The works are the way a person carries themselves, the things that they do. That's their fruits coming off their tree. Scriptures talk about men are trees, right? It refers to men and women as trees. Having water to water them and the word and all this other stuff, right? If you are a tree, you're supposed to produce good fruit, good works. So verse 6, the fruit declare if the tree have been dressed, if there's something there, if there's a person that I can see that person's got this, I can see what type of man he is. Sis is supposed to understand that and watch out for these things. So is the utterance of a conceit in the heart of man, right? Verse 7, praise no man before thou hearest him speak, for this is a trial of man, right? Reasoning. So when you start to hear these different things, don't praise a man too quickly. Don't look at him high. Oh, he can dress, he can do this, he just got the charm, he's got all this other stuff. Again, Eve was the one that was deceived in the beginning. Because if you say something to women in a certain manner, then they get quickly emotionally invested in something that can be a complete facade. It happens over and over and over and over again. And you don't need the type of mindset as a woman to be like, that ain't true. I know you lying if you say that. Understand your vulnerable position. Understand you are an emotional creature. Know that and move accordingly. Don't deny it, because the more you deny it, the more you're going to get caught out there slipping when somebody says something slick to you. You understand that, so you have to safeguard yourself in a certain position. Understand who you are. You have strengths and weaknesses, but know your weaknesses, right? Don't deny them. Understand it. Last scripture, Proverbs 18. Proverbs 18 and verse 22, just for emphasis. After all that being said, 18 and 22, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor by the Lord. So let's not get it mistaken or twisted or anything else. Even after all that being said, the man is supposed to find his wife, right? He's supposed to find his wife. Now, that means you don't need to be running out here trying to grab this guy. Men will let women do anything. Vashti had the king's crown on her head and smote the king in the face. You talking about second or first Ezra 4. Vashti Vashti got caught up. That's an interesting the Esther story, which is that's it's really interesting because if you see the disrespect that she laid on I think it was Ahasuerus, told her to come because he wanted to show her beauty off. And I'm gonna read this real quick, right? Um, Esther chapter 1 and verse 10. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Ahasuerus the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look upon. But the queen Vashti refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very wroth, and his anger burned within him. Now this is interesting, because this is the reason why I said this weight should be on men's shoulders. Because if you were able to get the men to stop going to the strip club, get off OnlyFans, stop paying for that crap, stop watching porn, stop liking every little post and leaving all these weird messages to these random chicks on Instagram or Facebook and all this other stuff. If you got men to completely decommit to all these previous engagements they had, get rid of them. Women will get no attention, right? No, zero. What do you think is going to happen to the women? They're going to have the mindset to start changing behavior. This is the reason why I don't put it all on the women's shoulders. The Lord said it's Adam's fault that he listened, right? She's not a person that's going to be avoiding accountability or judgment, because like I joke about it all the time. If a woman says, yes, we're more emotional, you should know this is our excuse. I use the example, like if a woman was on her cycle, right, and she just hormonal crazy at certain points in the cycle, and she kills somebody, she goes to court and she tells the judge, hey, I'm a woman, I was crazy at that time. The lawyer's be like, I know what you mean, and you might be right, but you going to prison. That's exactly, everybody's gonna be accountable. The funny thing is Ahasuerus, he moved in a way that men are supposed to move, right? And women will appreciate this, because it's a sign that a man is willing to die in order to do something or keep the order or do something that the Lord says so. So it's not an Israelite, but I mean the demeanor that he has, right? He told his wife, remember, she's under his rulership. He's the leader. The same thing for sisters. He tells her to come because he wanted to show her beauty off. There's nothing that cheereth the countenance of a man. It's a woman's beauty, right? All these things tie together. We know this stuff in just reality. If you don't believe in the Bible, this is how it works. Men do crazy stuff for beautiful women, right? Or women they find beautiful. She decided, I'm not going to go. I'm not listening to him. Complete disrespect. Now, however somebody wanted to measure it and say, well, he just wanted to show off for attraction. I've never seen women not like that. But in this situation, King Ahasuerus responded, right? Verse 13. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner toward all that knew the law and judgment. And the next unto him, and next unto him was Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meresni, Meresna, and Memucan, the seven princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face, and which sat at the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law, because she have not performed the commandment of the king Ahasuerus by the chamberlains? And remember, this ain't no the same way Christ dealt with the church. Christ is not looking at the church to be like, or Israel, and be like, what y'all think about eating pork? You think I should change it? you think you think you think y'all should have to keep the Sabbath every now and then? Should I rotate the Sabbath? It's a Tuesday, it's a Friday, it's whenever you say it is. No, these laws literally was set in stone. You're going to abide by this, or you're going to die. That's the way the Lord moves. That's the way a man's supposed to move, not to physically harm his wife, but it's my way or the highway, especially in that man's role is following God. There is no other way, right? This is rooted in if a man's doing what he's supposed to do according to God. It's not talking about it can be on some level in the world because a man's again, this is the reason why you have to be careful as a vulnerable one looking at a man. He can physically harm you. Should you put yourself in that type of vulnerable spot with a man you're not aware of or you haven't vetted him? No. So in her position, Queen Vashti falls under the same guidelines. This man is a king. We know Israelite got laws. What you think these nations do? They set their own laws up. You might just get killed for that, right? David's wife she can't have kids because she made fun of him when he's coming home from war. He shut her womb up. So like this starts to show you levels of respect for these men that the Most High has in these positions, right? Verse 16. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to the princes and to all the people that are all in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. Now, to point, Brother Sadat perfectly said, it happened on a small scale during COVID. Now, this is how this stuff would trickle down, right? When people start talking about how, what do you care if a guy wants to be in a same-sex marriage? It ain't got nothing to do with you. Well, of course, if we're in the same society, of course it does. I'm not going to cut out a piece of land from Texas all the way over to the east to give you and your friend to do some type of abomination over there. No, the Lord set this thing up a proper way because what do we know? Influence is heavy everywhere. If a person does something, a person can only be gay with a second person with him. So those two pop off. Then there's 3. Then there's 8. Then there's 20. Then there's 50. And then you got a community, LGBTQ, who was born this way. The same way that these men understood, this ain't something that's minuscule. This woman didn't just do you wrong. This can trickle down to the rest of the kingdom. If she can just say and do whatever she want, you can be looking like a fool out here. All of us be looking like a fool out here, right? Verse 17. For this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported that King Ahasuerus commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. Likewise all the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes, which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him. Let it be written among the laws of the Persians and the Medes, that it be not altered, that Vashti come no more before the king Ahasuerus. And let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. Now this is crazy. This is the reason why you take it back some years or some decades. This would be a reason why women would say things like, this is the reason why a man shouldn't have all the power. He shouldn't have all the money, access to these things. The funny thing is when you level things out a bit and women do have this ability, they still want the man that has that level of power, which is insane. This is the reason why men ain't supposed to be following women. It don't make any sense. You want it one way, and then you follow it. It doesn't make any sense. They understand this principle. We not about to let this fly. Let this law go forth. She ain't come. She not coming for the king no more. Don't want to hear that. We not doing all that, because once they understand the example and the precedent has been set, then the women of the wives are gonna be like, oh, I shouldn't do this. Why you think the Most High has laws in place in the Old Testament for a disobedient child? He don't want to listen. Bring him out in front of everybody. We're gonna stone him to death. Why you think he does that? This person was caught in adultery. Bring him out in front of everybody. We're gonna stone him to death. Why you think the Most High has laws and judgments in place like that? So everybody around him knows. The Most High know all about influence. He knows it. We know it. You gonna do this? It's somebody gonna have this little thought in the back of their mind. Nothing happened to them. I can do it too. It's that Ecclesiastes 8 thing. You done evil once and get judged for it. I mean, why not a second time? Why not a fifth time? Right? And the next thing you know, you full blown life of sin. They understand these principles. These aren't men of God, right? Think about that. These are the other nations. They're not men of God. They know the repercussions of these things, so they put laws in place for this. Verse 20, and when the king's decree which shall make shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both to great and small. So this is for everybody. Take the estate from her, take her money from her, take the crown from her. She can be a peasant now because she openly disobeyed the man that she was supposed to be subservient or submissive to. The Most High sets it up the same way. The Lord not looking at Israel as his wife and being like, oh, they just gonna break commandments? I'm gonna just let my wife do whatever she want. No, no, ain't gonna work like that. So understanding that all these things and principles are in place for a healthy functioning dynamic relationship between men and women. This is how marriage is supposed to be set up. That's why we've read in 1 Peter 3 also, likewise, husbands, love your wives. This is why it's supposed to be set up this way. It's not to take advantage of, not to do that. You're supposed to give her due honor, knowing in your mind or knowing in your spirit that she's the weaker vessel. Understand that. But she has to know that as well. She can't operate like she's above you or equal to you. It's not the way it works. Not of value, but in leadership. Most High set it up for this way for a particular reason. So I hope that made some sense. I hope that Lord's will might help some sisters. I've seen some brothers in this truth. It's crazy, bro. I mean, dudes is wild. Some of these dudes is wild. But again, sometimes there's no shortage of women that are lining up for these guys. But again, that's the emotional investment, right? So I guess it's pleasure now and sad later, but you know, to each his own. Happy New Moon, y'all. Happy Sabbath. Lord's will next week. Appreciate the input, brother Sadat. Uh, don't vote. Halloween is past now, but I'm sure there are gonna be some crazy Halloween parties. I almost hit this kid the other day driving, not seeing him in this dark place, walking with these daggone outfits on and stuff. This demonic crap. Participating in these holidays. We know the holiday season coming up for these people. Thanksgiving coming, elections coming. Israelites, so-called blacks and Hispanics, you ain't supposed to be involved in none of this crap. Remove yourself from it. Don't get emotionally invested. Kamala was never for you. Trump was never for you. Don't believe in sayings. Pick the lesser of the two evils. Stop listening to that crap. The Lord hates both sides, both parties, and the Lord is going to bring judgment on all the White House, the Congress, the House of Representatives, all of them. So don't think the Most High is looking at you and being like, oh, well, one policy is greater than the other. Remove yourself from that. It's the reason why the Most High tell you, we're looking at Revelation 18 about you got to come out of her. Stop believing in the system. Stop believing that these people are setting up things for your benefit. Remove yourself. They will keep you in the ghetto forever if the system's running, right? With that being said, y'all, happy Sabbath, Mohan, Christ blessed. Lord's will next week. Shalom. Happy New Moon, y'all. Shalom.